This video is entitled Ever Expanding Love, and it connects to, or it deals with everything from like relationship love to spiritual love, religious love, ideological love. And so what happens as we get to ever greater levels of love, which is really ever greater levels of truth, right? So it's, imagine, like, why are people so passionate about their ideology, or they're so passionate about politics? And it's because that is a love of truth. Like, anybody that gets super fired up about politics, super fired up about ideology, is in absolute, like, they're in love with the truth. And so that love can take any number of relationship forms. It might not be a healthy relationship. Like, people might be in a like codependent relationship with the truth, or a relationship where they're not being entirely honest with the truth. And so that can make the person's ideological or political behavior a little bit unstable, erratic, like something that people could criticize as pathological. That's the other thing that's going on with people's when you're in a relationship with somebody, you are in love with love, or in love with acceptance. Being in the reason that people are in relationships is with a love of love, right? And I would say people have ideological or scientific beliefs, philosophy, science, ideological. Those types of beliefs are those things are a love of truth. Right, so you notice these are the things where we get fired up, potentially. So there's a love of truth is what drives science and ideology and philosophy. And those are kind of different methods of working out that are different from like CrossFit or Tai Chi or ballet. Would be kind of like how you would recognize the difference between science and philosophy, and like politic or ideology, or any of the ologies. And then religious or metaphysics, so any sort of metaphysical reasoning. That would be what I would call a love of wisdom, which is the context or the placement of truth. See if a little system can come together here. So we have the personal, which is love of love, so that's why you engage with other people, and we'll keep revisiting and diving into these things. You have the love of truth, right, which I could also call that practices of accurate perception. Is the same as the science, right? That would be I think that's the queen of sciences, of like, am I seeing things correctly? And by correctly, I mean like the thing in you that can develop to where your movements become artistic, like a ballet, or your perceptions can be, they're beautiful, like an artist. Like, our ability to see truth can deepen with practice. Like the actual perception itself of somebody just sitting there not doing anything, that has levels to it. And so those levels of perception that you can get via training, allowing, relaxation, genetics, gift, whatever. A gift, like, a lot of the times increased perception is given to us. It's almost like maybe that's the only way to get it, is like somebody has to give it to us. We have to be taught. You can't self-teach. Yeah, you really can't self-teach. So these gifts of perceptual deepening is given to us a lot of the times by like culture, like which is like kind of a meta being, all the collective as a whole. Like they can give you, like you're given your education. So all of that is a love of truth. So truth, everything from truth as a speculative idea, to truth as like a reasoned thing in philosophy, truth as mathematical, and then also all the way to truth as perception. People even take substances, they use technology to amplify the amount of information that you get from reality. That's all love of truth. Then the love of wisdom is the context of that truth, of like how does all that truth best fit together. Like that would be the love of narrative, the love of story, love of wisdom, that's metaphysics. And then the back to the personal, like the love of love, like what is it that we're doing when we're in relationships with other people? And I would say this is all other people. You have multiple types of relationship, the familial, the main ones being the father, mother, sibling, cousins. And those are like bonds of friendship that you can't really pick or choose. But when you're in relationship, like true relationship is the act of accepting. So with like people that are very similar to you, the act of accepting is easier. And then people that are family, the act of accepting is easier. So a lot of the times, like with family, the act of accepting something, since it's easier, you can with family learn to accept more stuff about people. You learn to love deeper. Like the act of accepting is the foundation of the other loves, because otherwise the truth can't be thought of or much less contemplated or acted out without the accepting. So when you relate with people, you can learn to accept a lot because people have the same, like you're a person. So I'm a person, and so through that you can learn to accept, you can learn to love, learn to know all the different ways people can be different. And so that's like a tremendous amount of knowledge. And so in that interpersonal thing, it's like there's like, if you look at it, what are the ways or the orientations that you can have towards truth? One of which is like you can, full love would be like, I love the whole thing. I love the entire thing. The other one could be like, I love half of it, or I love some fraction of it. I love some fraction of the person. And so with that other fraction, you could have a fraction of them, and then the other fraction is either ignored or rejected. Ignored being it's not even acknowledged to exist, so there's really nothing lacking there. And then rejected is there's like kind of a fight against it. So the ignoring of having partial love with no negativity, that's avoidance. And it leaves very little wrong. There's not much wrong. There's just a big empty lack is what happens with avoidance patterns in love. And it's like it's like taking care of everything that's wrong. You take care of everything that's wrong, but there's a lack. You have to be given. Like with relationships, you have to date the correct. You have to choose correct relationships the same way that you need to choose correct gurus. Like when you're in a relationship, that person is your guru. And so you want them to be like crazy advanced in relationships where you most want to go grow or go deep or whatever. So the other one, so that's the avoidance, and that one's difficult to pin down. It's difficult. It's not. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not. It's just not the right size. It's not the right magnitude. It's not the right depth. It's not complete in that way. But it lacks. There's very little to criticize. Almost nothing to criticize with avoidant. So it can kind of drive you crazy. It's almost like having like a really, imagine having a perfect dinner, but it's just 500 calories short for what you need to survive. And it's like, oh man, that's really good, but like it can be, everything's perfect, and if it's actually deficit at all, if the love has any, if there's any lack in the love, you'll slowly waste away with an avoidant pattern. And if it's like just the tiniest bit of lack, you waste away very, 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 very slowly. And it's like, what's the problem? I'm not receiving nourishment. It's like, well, what's wrong? Do you not like the mashed potatoes? Do you not like the turkey and gravy? Do you not like the green bean casserole? And it's like, no, you'd say, oh no, I like all of those things. And you might be missing the cranberries. But you can't say the cranberries are wrong, they're just not there. You might not even know cranberries existed, but it's like you might be a cranberry dependent organism. You don't know. You don't even know. And so that's the avoidant is just like a slow starving. And that's done through pride of thinking I can get by with I don't need this. I don't need anymore. I don't need this. You don't think you need that much, but you do need that much. The avoidant is very tied to pride. That's why everything bad is taken care of. It's like the starvation of perfectionism, sort of. So then the other way is to have you reject that stuff. So then there's like all this, there's problems. There's lots and lots of problems. And it's hard to accept and reject at the same time. So there's some bipolar, or some oscillation, there's some back and forth. So the avoidant doesn't go back and forth, it is starved to death. The bipolar is kind of going back and forth like an alarm bell. So the people that are prone to bipolar mania or borderline stuff, even the narcissistic stuff, like anything of the cluster B, is turning on or revealing what's missing. Right, so all the people that are avoidant where there's no problem, they're just dying, they're dead, they're just missing a terminal amount. The people that start having the evil stuff, so the bipolar is focusing on the good and the bad, so it's accepting and rejecting. And then as you get more and more sociopathic, more and more evil, the person's consciousness or attention is just on what's bad. And that's why it's lit up right there. So the best thing is bipolar. So people that are having bipolar, spiritual stuff is like flashing on and on. That's the alarm bells. And then if that's ignored, you start to run into like the body or the human consciousness will start to focus on what's missing more and more and more and more until it's obviously visible and taken care of. And so as you go through life and you learn these different types of love or whatever, you can find out like a lot of the times, like after you taste something once, you can't go without it. That's the maturation process, is like once you figure something out, like a vital nutrient, you can't go back. Like you can't go back to surviving on what you lived on when you were a toddler, in terms of not just your food, but like your thoughts, your activities, your goals, your whatever. Like it, as you move through different levels of life, it's like you have different understandings of the truth, understandings of acceptance, like understanding, like the greater that you understand your humanity to be as a person, the more there is to accept in other people. And so that radically shifts what's going on in relationship. So when younger people are in a relationship, it's very them. It's a very new understanding of self. So they can only accept that kind of small, even though they are very big, their understanding isn't very big because of the youth. So if there's not like a very good system in place to where you trust, like you trust your, ideally you would want the older people, your older family, your older relationships to not be insane, right? So like if you have a couple generations of people who aren't like just totally propagandized, brainwashed people, then you get intergenerational like wisdom transmissions. Like you trust the adults instead of having like just traumatic relationships of insanity. Ideally, there's a continuation of being in our family relationships and in our social relationships, to where you feel as one with those around you, and you can think together as one. So it's like your parents and your grandparents and your older siblings and people who have lived longer, even culture at large, its wisdom traditions, has a very good picture where you can tell like, oh, this is what I need for nourishment, and you can go out and look for that in terms of your partners, your behaviors, your truths, your ideologies. Like you can know that you're going to grow a ton, but if you have an intact society, it's okay. Because you can be steered intelligently or correctly, rather than like in a psychotic manner. And so that's really what happened, is like people like the boomers and just, I don't know, westernized people in general are so traumatized. Or people that like really, that TV generation, it's hard to even fathom how real or how crazy TV was for these people. And the whole science thing. And so they just it was this big social engineering experiment that people did, like basically military stuff, after World War II, even before that. But it's like basically what culture started to be weaponized, and so did spirituality with the advent of study into psychedelics, mind control, just narrative-based propaganda, like world-based propaganda, to where it's like you can being able to get everybody on Earth to watch the same play, the same events, the same characters all at the same time causes a tremendous psychic resonance, controllable. So it's like that experimentation on humanity, like humanity opened itself to being controlled by these like bizarre, twisted forces. That led to the family structure breaking apart, because the obviously the new people born don't want to do that after they see it. So then the consequences of that is people don't know who they are. They don't have any connection to anybody that they trust that's like 40, like when they're 20. And so the confusion with that severed is just immense. Like the severing of the older from the younger, the confusion is immense, and everyone was, oh, it's the younger generation. Like, no, the older is psychotic, completely psychotic, completely psychotic and oblivious and asleep. Put into like a hypnotic trance state. They've got like literally a government military operation of using the TV, using these light bulbs in people's homes to put them into a hypnagogic like theta state, receptive open theta state, and use that for mental and social control at this massive scale. And like anything, it works well at first, but then nature usually physiologically responds or adapts to it, right? So it's like it's not taking anymore. Like it's not believable. It's just kind of like how imagine like, you know, bacteria becoming drug resistant. It's like whatever it was, it's just not believable to the bacteria anymore. So it's kind of the same thing with people's minds. In terms of this mind control stuff, and it worked for like several decades, but now it's not, and simultaneously, like, but the culture is already kind of like broken. So I think possibly you'll see like a resurrection, because it's like if culture is derived from God, from reality, and people can just see that because that's truth, that's wisdom, and that's love, then just reestablishing that should, in theory, fix all the other problems. And so there's a thing where it's like you love is fully accepting the person. I don't know, it's that cliche of like, love the sinner, hate the sinner. It's not necessarily that. It's like you don't have to accept that what's wrong with people has nothing to do with why you love them. You don't have to love what's wrong with them. And if you love them fully entirely, there's truly nothing wrong with them. And I don't mean like, I mean that type of love is how you heal people. That's psychic healing. That's conversational healing. Like when people are loved fully, they actually heal. And so people are afraid of that, so you get the avoidant, or people don't believe that, so you get like the atheist, narcissistic sociopath, like, that doesn't believe that love changes reality in a transcendent, magical way beyond the rational understanding. People don't believe that, and so that's when you start to hate things that are wrong and try and fix them, you know, via scientific manipulation, engineering, whatever. Correct. Like just that mentality is from the focusing on the problem. And the problem is focused on in that way because God is forgotten, or love is no longer believed in. And so then that means that you have to fix something. Otherwise you would be like, oh, love can fix this. And you just look for love, petition love, look to love to fix things rather than looking to like strategy or surgery or removal or whatever. And you see this pattern is in pop culture at all levels for all these things. It's just people are engaging in this game of love at different levels of consciousness, different levels of education, different levels of maturity. but it's like you always are able to understand more, so your idea of what love is constantly expanding. And that's where it's like yeah, you have these big ideological shifts anytime that there's an opening, and like the love is expanded and included, and that can cause friction with, like, if you see like basically if you've had an expansion of the heart, the way that you know it's real is it might not cause agreement with other people, but it doesn't cause conflict at all. It doesn't place blame anywhere. It just causes this expansion. A lot of it causes an acceptance, and it's healing. It's definitely healing. Like healing in you're staying right there and transforming, and not healing in this bad thing was cut out of my life. Right. So that the thing where you are forced to stay with something negative or bad, and not to be able to cut it out, that's the only way that avoidant patterns of being are corrected. So these situations manifest in the life, and that's the reason that they manifest in the life is to accept, or become conscious of where the love was not complete. And so there's also a disbelief that the love can heal things. So it's only when the thing that isn't believed to be healed is like, it's almost, you're crucified, you're nailed to that which you think you can't love, and just your presence and just your awareness will start to heal and transform that thing, and then that restores faith in love, or it restores faith in God. And so then that's the ultimate pattern of existence, which is why it's the core story of the modern and a lot of the ancient world, you could argue. And it's just and so that plays itself out in politics, ideology, science, interpersonal relationships, stuff like that. Like you could think of it for a while. And that's called mapping.